Hey, JB here, the Wolf of Wall Street in the Wolf's Den. Another awesome episode. Now, today is very special. I have a female gamer, Guinness Book of World Records. She's a force to be reckoned with, and she's actually part of a company that I'm involved with called Brag House. Now, Brag House is an up-and-coming force in the esports world, specializing in amateur gamers, that level just above those professional gamers. And the company is blowing up right now. So they've introduced me to Kat Gunn, who is just like on fire. So Kat, welcome to the show.
I'm great, Jordan. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I actually have a first question for you, Jordan. Are you a gamer?
Listen, I am. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story. All right. First of all, I'm going to take you back to a time before you were even born, when my father in 1974 brought home Coleco Pong from the store, and it was like you put it on your television set. We had this old style square, Sony Trinitron, right? You didn't have flat screens back then. And we had this game, boop, 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 like just Pong. And my brother and I were like, oh my God. Like the arcade is in our house. We couldn't even believe it. We played it for hours and days, and I became an expert at Pong and then Breakout. And then I was so great at video games. I was into Miss Pac-Man and Asteroids. And then when it started getting to this Intellivision stuff and all the other more complicated games, I just never really kept up with it. And some of these kids got so great at it, it got demoralizing because people were so good at it. And I was like, oh, fuck it. I missed the window. And then later on, my sons, both my boys, were really, really into it. And one of my sons, when he came to work for me, after 5 o'clock, his first day, 5:01, he finishes his first day of work. He's in his room playing like Call of Duty. I don't say anything to him. And then next day, 5:01, back in his thing, Call of Duty. I'm like, if you keep doing this, number one, you're never going to get laid in your life. I didn't know how cool gaming was. I didn't know, all right? And like I said, listen, you can't make money as a game. Turns out I was wrong, right? And this whole amazing ecosystem flourished around gamers. So let me ask you this, male, female, forget that for just what is it about video games that people just find so intriguing, so addictive, not just to even play, but to watch others play? What do you think it is?
I think there's a multitude of reasons. For me personally, I was raised on playing video games. To take you back into the past a little bit too, my dad owned a comic card store where we sold laser discs, if you remember that.
Of course I do. Before Blu-ray, yeah.
Yeah, and so for people that don't know what laser discs are, it's essentially fat DVDs, right? Before we started getting DVDs, which for those that may not even know, that's a disc that also had media information on it, because now we're even past getting into DVDs, right? We're all in like a digital consumption. But I think video games, at least for me, it wasn't like escaping, and more just like basically having an interactive experience where you can either, go venturing off into a fantasy land, or you could compete against other people, obviously be in like military situations when you're playing like Call of Duty and stuff. So I personally just feel like it's just a greater form of entertainment where you're interacting and getting stimulation in a vast different.
Head to netsuite.com/wolf for a special one-of-a-kind financing offer. That's netsuite.com/wolf, netsuite.com/wolf. Now, I know this is probably an old-fashioned statement, but would you consider yourself like a tomboy growing up? Are you more into guys, boy stuff than girl stuff, or is this an aberration, just like video games? Because I would think it's more for, video games is more of a boys thing, right, than girls?
Yeah, no, that's actually a great question. I would personally, I kind of grew up tomboyish just because I don't know, my mom was never girly girl. She's more hippie. And so for me, I don't think it was necessarily like any kind of boyish tendencies or whatever, however you want to identify that. But I just kind of, like I said, I had a sister who also played. I had a brother who also played. And naturally, just my dad always having to be like the kid that he is, having consoles and stuff, we just always had gaming around in our life. And as I got older, I actually became more feminine because I didn't really want to like get lost in that kind of aggressive mentality of like talking too much crap. And my dad always reminded me of what it's, means to be a woman, and kind of like having that woman prowess and and what that means and how you influence other people because of that. So I think there's a little bit of a balance there.
Do you think at the level that, and I want to get into the games that you play and how the whole system works. You know, I'm in the esports business, but I want to get your perspective. Do you think that being a woman gives you an advantage when you're playing against mostly males? Is it, you know, either quicker reflexes, you know, looking at big pictures? I think women are very good at looking at the big picture, while men are much more into like sort of laser guided focus. I think biologically, of course, that's, you know, it's a generalization, but I think just biologically that we're built a bit differently like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I personally wanted to like do studies on this because I think it's so intriguing to see the space and how different it can be for a female involved in it and a male. When you look at esports, it is pretty much 99.9% males that are being paid professionally to be involved. When you look at influencers and you look at like the streaming space, broadcasting space, it definitely, that percentage changes quite a bit. And if you look at gaming as a whole, there is said to be about 50 to 60% females that are actually gamers, which if that includes cell phone gaming, you know, that's like, you got your differences there. Like, yeah, maybe a lot of women play Candy Crush. Okay. But I think competitively, my personal experience with it, I think it may be a little bit harder for the average woman to be involved. And we're definitely seeing this shift because of the way that we can kind of deal with the harassment online for being a female from men that are anonymous and can just say whatever they want. And then we also, in general, I think because we have that nurturing kind of stigma, that being aggressive can, like I said, make you that toxic kind of person. So I think with me growing up, like being around other women who were also in gaming, even though it was a lot smaller, it helps to know that this is still an avenue and something that we can try and do to be on that aggressive side. Overall, I think the studies would show that we are just wired differently in terms of the kind of leagues we would be in, just like you have women's tennis and you have male's tennis, right? And there's a clear physical difference. I still think there is a difference in our mentality and the way that we are built, but gaming does allow for us to close that gap closer and closer. And I think the more we evolve around that, we might see a huge difference in women being in that space.
Well, is there a physical advantage to being a man in gaming, like with endurance or a speed of moving a finger? I don't know. I mean, it would seem to me that this would really level the playing field dramatically, almost is it dead even, or is there still an edge that males have because of testosterone?
No, I think there's a natural aggression, right? So I think with certain games, there might be a certain...
You never met my ex-wife, by the way. So, I mean, I don't know about natural aggression, you know, but, well, you know, that's a separate issue.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we got some aggressive women out there, but there have been women that have played in the same space with men. And, like, there's a card game, for instance, that in Hearthstone, there was a championship there for a woman. And for me personally, I've seen it a lot in just many different games. Hafu is a great example as well of doing really well in the competitive space. The games seem to be different, what they do well in, right? Like you were even mentioning before, I think it comes down to like, yeah, we can strategize, we can multitask, and there are other things that we are strong in doing. When it comes to reactions and reactive times, I think we are there. We are just such a small percentage that it's that much harder for us to get to the top.
Sure. By the way, I'll tell you a really funny story. So when I was maybe in my 30s, I was dating after the wife, after I got divorced for the second time from the wife from the movie. My third fiance was the first and last Miss Soviet Union. Her name was Yulia Sukhanova. But Yulia had this one rare quality that I'd never seen in a woman before. She was an expert gamer. Back when it wasn't fashionable, I'm talking like in 1999, 2000, she was hitting levels. My son was like 3 or 4 at the time. He'd be like, Yulia's fighting monsters no one's ever seen before. Like, she was like a Crash Bandicoot and like all these different games. And she was just an expert at like level 27 and unbelievable. You know, Miss Pac-Man, she was really an amazing gamer. She would sit there all the like, it was amazing, like how she would do that. So do you think, are you like sort of a guy's like, all these young nerdy gamers wet dream, like a girl like you is like, do they freak out? Do they not know what, do they get nervous when they see you? These little kids, like, you know, they're these kids, a lot of them, they're 6, 15, 16, they really don't understand. They're intimidated by women. Then you come along, they're like, they don't know what to make of you. Does that ever happen?
Yeah, I get a lot of the like, oh, I didn't expect that from that appearance, right? So it's more like the book by the cover kind of experiences that I've had. I think when people are naturally intimidated or something, you don't really see it, right? You would have to kind of interact with them, and they'd be like, "Oh God, I'm shaking now."
It's like a cheap movie, after school movie, right? Where the nerdy kid is intimidated by the gamer girl, right?
Yeah, but I've seen that from different, like, there's fans that just get that way too, which I'm sure you might have experienced, where you meet someone and they have you like personified so much that they're just like, oh my God, this is like that person that I finally get to meet. But yeah, there's some nerdy boys out there that definitely have kind of clouded themselves from the social interactions with humans. But I don't, that's just, it happens.
All right. So the CFOs that get it. And the CFOs that don't. Let's talk about the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer. Today's CFO is critical to the strategy and success of the business. And in growing companies, there are two kinds of CFOs. One who's struggling to keep up, spreadsheets everywhere, manual processes, errors, and lack of visibility into the numbers. Takes weeks to close the books. The other kind is on top of their game. Automated reports, inventory, e-commerce, and HR flow into the financial model seamlessly. Insights come with the click of a button. With visibility and control of your financials, inventory, HR, planning, and budgeting, NetSuite is everything you need to grow all in one place. That's why NetSuite is the #1 cloud-based financial system used by over 28,000 growing businesses. Like I told you, the CFOs that get it, they get it. And the CFOs that don't. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system to power your growth. With visibility and control of your financials, inventory, HR, planning, budgeting, and more, NetSuite is everything you need to grow all in one place. With NetSuite, you can automate your processes and close your books in no time while staying well ahead of your competition. NetSuite.com/wolf. NetSuite.com/wolf. So let's talk about first the gaming skill side. Then I want to talk about the business side of gaming. So how many hours do you practice each day? Is it actually practice, or is it just playing? Or is there drills that you do? What's the system where someone who's interested in gaming raises up their level to get to that, semi-professional, professional? What's the way to do that?
Okay. So back when I competed heavily, there is definitely a level of hours that you have to put into it, that you have to dedicate into it. You have to study the game. You have to break down the game. You have to understand it to its its minute degree of knowing how to perform better at it. And then now with the kind of esports scene that there is, I've kind of gone more of the influencer route, where it's a lot more laid back for me now. I can kind of just play different games. I can, do many different things. But I am the general manager for the London Royal Ravens currently here in Charlotte, which is under the umbrella of Rect Global and Rogue. And I basically oversee them and how they do their practicing and the kind of rigorous stuff that they go through. And they play probably about 5 to 6 days a week, anywhere between 4 to 8, upwards of 10 hours a day. And they also play against other professional teams. They set up matches, they organize all of that. We have a coach, Dom. He takes care of making sure that they're all in line. He watches their, gameplay. He records it. He plays it back. They go over strategies. And then we also have an analyst as well who kind of helps give any insight that we can into the information. So that's pretty much our current regimen for the Call of Duty League that we participate in.
And is this basically then you have people watch you playing on Twitch? Is that the business side? Is that how you make money? So tell me about that. Explain that whole process to me. This is fascinating.
Yeah. So outside of being the general manager and that being my other job, my main thing that I've been doing for about 7 years is broadcasting on Twitch. I also had a contract with Facebook for about a year, and that more so allows me to kind of be my own boss. It's great in that way, but I'm also the worst boss. You hate your boss, right? So I kind of get to, go online. I usually play what's most recently come out. Right now I'm playing Elden Ring. It's a great game. I still play competitively in the sense of playing on ranked, online. I play Call of Duty Warzone. I've recently, I played Fortnite. I played Blackout. It always changes, and that's what's kind of fun with gaming, right? You're always adapting. You're always kind of like playing what's new and what's out there. So I would get online and I could be on for 2 hours if I wasn't feeling well, or if I had something else I had to do, and I would just say quick hi. Or I can be on for upwards of 10 to 12 hours. And it's a really interesting grind, because the longer you stream, sometimes the more you can see. Unlike YouTube, right? You can pop on a 2-minute video and might get a million views, or a 2-minute video and it'll like barely do anything. With streaming, you can be on, like, I know people now that basically do marathons where they legitimately fall asleep and then wake up and they stream the whole thing. And it's almost like you're kind of their 24 hours life, and you get paid via subscriptions and people can donate. And it's definitely an interesting, different way of being paid as opposed to the professional aspect.
And how much money can someone make as a streamer? How many people do you have? First of all, how many people are watching you at any given moment in a good day?
I mean, concurrent viewers can change based upon the game that you're playing. But if we're talking like the 1% of Twitch, they're making well over 6 figures a month playing video games. I stick more into the 4, sometimes 5 figures if I can really grind it out and dedicate myself to the platform. But you're really kind of, grinding your gears to do that. And it just depends on your fan base. The bigger of a fan base you have, if you're pulling in like a concurrent viewership of like 2,000 to 5,000 people, which is literally them watching you at that time, like right then and there. It'd be like you on Netflix. And if you're watching a TV show and it said, hey, you and 700 other people are right here, right now, watching this Netflix show. That's how you know who's there. And they chat and they interact. So yeah, it's nuts. There's some people that I think one guy streamed for 30 days straight and made well over like $300,000 doing that. And not to mention the like donations and other things that all become part of the income.
Sure. So it seems obvious. Okay, so very quickly I realize you have an amazing personality, right? I mean that, and there's something about you. There's a brightness to you, a lightness to you that I could see how people want to watch you play your game. So I'm assuming you're very verbal as you're playing. Are you making an effort to make it fun and interacting and being, or no? Are they just? I mean, are you talking and answering questions, or are you just sitting there looking pretty and playing your game and being an expert?
Well, I haven't gone the bikini in a hot tub route. So, maybe once the bills become desperate or something. No. No shame to the people that do that stuff. That's totally their choice, and that's what they want.
I mean, I think, listen, I don't really, listen, you know what? I don't matter what you do. I think everyone's entitled to, if they have
No.
Right?
I'm just trolling. I'm totally trolling, which gives you insight into actually what more of my streams like.
But you actually have an amazing skill. So you're an actual real gamer. So it's probably, I'm sure there's some people probably aren't that great at it, but they'll sit there in a bikini and they can get a lot of viewers because people want to watch them in a bikini. But my point is, I mean, with you, it would seem that just your personality. And I didn't mean when I say that you're pretty, I mean, you're an attractive woman. That's always an edge, okay? Because men are men, right? And even women want to watch other women because they want to hate on them, right? And I can just see you being very verbal and making it fun. Is that what you do? You make it a fun experience?
Yeah, like I said, so my thing that I tend to do and the way that I interact with the people that tune into me, I tend to be pretty savage.
You little worm, I'll kick you. Like you play against the guy. You little worm, I'll kick your ass, you bet. Is it like that? What do you?
Yeah, it's definitely. I try not to like trash talk in video games. I'm not really into that. My parents kind of like when they raised me, I got in trouble if I was toxic. Like if I said, "Oh, you fat with your small." I was gonna save you the problem. You little tiny penis, micro penis, fat bastard. You'll never get laid. Yeah, like you're in your mom's basement still, and all those kind of typical things. Like even the most shit I ever got to was just like, oh, you're in the kitchen, and get back to the kitchen, and a lot of like female, kind of derogatory.
A pair of panties. Take your panties off. Take the tampon out of your ass. I know all the ones, right?
Yeah, God, it gets pretty.
I'll
bad.
give you some good ones, but I got some good ones stored up from over the years, But when you do that, are you doing it? Is it like you're doing it to be funny, or somebody's trying to throw someone else who you're playing against off balance? Is he doing that as well?
Yeah, no, like it's definitely become something where you kind of fall, I think, naturally into your organic way of being. And you're just like, for me, I'm just organically savage in the way that I respond to things. I don't really take shit. If somebody gives me shit, then I'll talk back to them and like fire with fire in that way. But I try to overall just be more welcoming. It's, you know, you're creating a community. You're creating a misfit family with all these people of all different walks of life. And for me personally, I try to be what I'm comfortable with being. You know, I like to discuss health and well-being, but I also like to, you know, tell somebody to get good and to have fun doing that and to kind of just, you know, competitively challenge someone. I think that's my favorite thing. I was always competitively challenged, and that inspired me to want to like be better. So that's what I tried.
So are you in your early 20s? Is that how old are you?
No, I
Mid-20s?
wish.
How old are you?
No. My birthday's coming up on 4/20. I don't smoke, but yeah, my birthday's coming up. I'll be turning 34.
Whoa. I thought you were.
That's why you
I
got to
think
care about health, kids. Care about
I
your
know.
health.
Oh, okay. So you're early 30s. Okay. Wow. Okay. Great. And what is your life like outside of gaming? I mean, how would you describe yourself in terms of, are you the same way offline as when you're online, or you're a completely different person?
Ironically enough, I've actually gotten in a few arguments because my streaming personality sometimes can be a little too challenging in real life, you know, where you're just like constantly savage. So I've had, you know, fights with my family or like mom and dad where they're just like, "Oh, you're just kind of being mean right now." And I'm like, I'm sorry." Like, you know, so I learned to get feedback. Luckily, this honesty and this kind of savagery came from my family. So we have a very blunt way of speaking and expressing ourselves. But offline, I try to just be into hobbies and, like I said, health. So, you know, like maintain gym regimens. I'm very passionate about food. I consider myself a foodie. I love cooking. I love cooking things to be healthy. And I like trying to just get into different hobbies. Right now, I have like a little plotter that allows me to print out decals so I can try to add them onto things. I have the piano behind me where I'm trying to get back into learning piano. So I think creativity is the way to kind of, I don't know, for me personally, because I have anxiety and panic attacks sometimes, that creativity kind of offsets being too much in your head or not feeling satisfied.
Hmm. Yeah, I used to suffer from terrible panic attacks my whole life. I did. I always used debilitating, but they stopped about, you know, it was my mid 20s, actually my early 30s. They stopped, but it's a terrible thing. Um, do, do you have a nemesis like online, like that you like someone that's like your enemy that you play against? Like it's like, you know, I'm gonna get this. Is there someone like that?
No. I've learned that if anybody triggers me, then that's a like something I gotta reflect on and be like, okay, why does this person, like I said, the hot tub things, right? Like
Yeah.
obviously with women, we've had this concept, like we're fighting against the stigmas always. Like it's kind of like, oh, we should be a certain way, or well, like I said, in the kitchen, or just, you know, this kind of negativity. And I don't think that's majority of people. I just think the you know, the emptiest barrel makes the most noise. You know, the empty barrel inside.
Especially on Twitter and online, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where you get a lot of negative feedback. So when you're fighting these stigmas and you have other women out there that are definitely kind of getting a little bit more popular because they are, you know, taking advantage or potentially exploiting their, you know, talents, whatever you want to call it, I think that can sometimes make women frustrated in the space. But just like you said, Jordan, it's like they're doing their own thing. They're making,
Right.
that's how they want things to be. And that's fine. That's just how you got to like horse blinders, do your own thing. Stop being on the internet. Stop comparing yourself. Don't be triggered by that kind of stuff. It's just prove otherwise. Just be your own set of examples.
So there's no one like in the movie Thor. Was it in the Endgame where they go to get Thor, and you ever see Endgame and Thor's like he's having a fight with the guy online. He's like, I'm gonna go and fly over there and kick your ass to the other kid game or some 12-year-old game. It's not like that. We're having battles with other gamers individually.
You know, you're your biggest enemy, right? Like just yourself, and trying to make sure that you're maintaining, you know, like even for me, my biggest enemy is like, okay, I got to get into the gym. And then you talk yourself out of going to the gym and you're like, great. Now I'm just like, that's like can be the bigger enemy, especially with anxiety and panic attacks. I'm sure you understand that too. It's like, it's your mind. Your mind becomes your enemy in a way where you're like constantly trying to just, you know, apply logic, but then your body applies fail safes. And you're like,
Well, I mean, I think, with panic attacks, it's almost like at a certain point, the fear of getting a panic attack can give you a panic attack. It's almost like it's all self-induced after a while. And I self-medicated for many years. I did tons of drugs. And when I stopped doing drugs, it got to the point where I really had no way to control those. I had to just accept it. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to take another Xanax. I'm not going to take a Quaalude. I mean, I had no choice. I have to just deal. And then ultimately, they stopped because I really had nowhere to go with it. I stopped self-medicating. That was my way of getting rid of them. And it was a vicious loop, because once you start it, it's like it gets worse and worse, and more drugs. This drug creates one side effect, so you take another drug to get rid of the side effect, creates another side effect, and on it goes. So, is video games therapy for you in some way?
I think so. I think it can be for a lot of people, just because once again, you're keeping your brain active and integrated into something that allows you to kind of just, it's like you watch a TV series, it can be pastime, but you still may be a little kind of in your head even when that's happening. So when you're involved in a video game, that being able to have to actively think about what you're doing and use more of a cognitive skill, I think that helps definitely a lot in just being that kind of therapy. However, I do think some people use it in an opposite sense, where they get online and they're like, oh, you fucking piece, that's bullshit. How did that happen? Oh, like they kill you, and they're just like,
right.
Oh, you're, they use like insert bad name because they're like, you're a pussy because you're like somehow sitting somewhere and they, you killed them, and they're like, oh, you're a piece of shit. And you're like, okay. So some people, I feel like, don't understand that video games are for fun, and that's the outlet and that's the enjoyment. But yeah, my dad did a pretty good job. My dad and mom both did a really good job at being like, hey, if you're not having fun, stop doing it. And I'm like, okay, it's for fun.
What, in your opinion, what's the greatest video game of all time?
I actually liked a few. One of them was called Ninja Gaiden on the original Xbox. It just had an amazing combo system, the story was pretty good. Classic story of like your teacher turns out to be your nemesis. And then I played a game called EverQuest. It was a massive online role-playing game. And then I actually had a couple boyfriends off that too, because I was young at the time, and I met a couple boys off that. And that was fun. And then I played EverQuest, Crimson Skies, just a lot of original Xbox, because I think that's where online came out. And that's where like you got to play those games, just like countless hours online with other
Are these mostly single person shooter games, or like that sort of stuff? Single person combat?
Everything. Yeah, I played everything though. Like I've gotten into fighting games. I love fighting games like Dead or Alive, and 3D fighters like Soul Calibur. I love shooters. Halo was a big thing for me growing up originally. That's actually like the Halo skinned Xbox behind me. And I just right now I'm pretty much into like the battle royales, but also Elden Ring, which is like an RPG solo game that's extremely difficult. Makes you want to pull your hair out, but maybe that's a kinky thing. I don't know. But yeah,
for some people, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about the metaverse? Do you think it's the future, or do you think it's overblown? Do you see people going in there and really spending time? What are your thoughts?
I think we'd all be billionaires if we understood that much, right? Like knowing that like Twitch would be a thing with broadcasting, knowing that TikTok would be the next way of consuming media. I've always been in this because being so invested in the technology space, things literally come and go. Like they can be around for years, they can be around for a week, and it's always great to see what's currently invented. I still want to go into the VR realm. I think that's something that's way down the line of being well integrated into our lives. But Ready Player One was a great book, and knowing that we could potentially kind of, once I'm like a raisin, an old hag or something, that I can potentially be in a virtual reality world where
Sure.
I can like.
I got an Oculus yesterday, by the way.
Nice.
I got it yesterday. Yeah, I wanted to check it out.
You like it?
I haven't been able to hook it up. I'm not that technically proficient. I need like an army of people to help me hook it up. No, but I just got it. It's charging right now, and yeah, it looks pretty cool. I mean, I put VR headsets on, and listen, it depends what content you're watching. If it's great content, it's amazing. I've seen other versions where I just wasn't impressed with what I was watching, but I think that as time goes on, content keeps getting created for these platforms, and it gets it's almost like the users themselves and the developers make a platform, more useful, more powerful because they keep contributing and putting cool stuff on. Hence, like an example would be a TikTok or a Twitch, right? So, what do you think? With all those games, is there a common thread? What makes a game great? Is there, if you were going to design a game yourself, have you ever thought of designing your own game?
I absolutely would love to. I more so would probably go the party game route. So because I have a family, which, we go from anywhere from like kind of being casual to competitive, like we do racing games and fighting games and all that kind of stuff. I think the most fun I've ever had is when you get to play with friends and you get to do it over a party game. And party game kind of meaning like there's Mario Party, there's Gang Beasts, there's Pummel Party. There's all these games that have like mini games in them. And I think what's nice is that I like the approachability for any skill level. Like even there was a social deduction game called Among Us that was really popular for quite some time. And when you can basically play with somebody of any level and include the community as a whole and just have these goofy moments where somebody like, bonks somebody else off the map or whatever. It's just like, to me, I really enjoy those because it just allows everybody to be involved and, have some sort of entertainment and some sort of interaction. Because I think the problem with the competitive world and the reason there may be even less women in it is that when you have to like be at a certain level, you said, right? Like all of a sudden the video games just got out of control. You're playing them. And then all of a sudden you're just like, wait, I have to do a million things at once. And like APM and all these different terminologies and things that come out in video games. And you're like, wow, I can't keep up. Like I constantly have that fear. Like there's in the back of my head. Sure. I'm like, yeah, one of the kids we have on our Rocket League team is 15, and I'm like, okay, it's getting to the point where I'm like, I'm almost the age of their mom, and I'm here generally managing them, which does feel like being their mom sometimes.
I bet.
Yeah.
Where do you live by? Where are you located?
Say it again?
Where are you located? Where do you live?
I live in Charlotte with the team. That's where our headquarters is at. So this is currently in North Carolina, Charlotte, in the city. And my house that I have is in Southern California, which I know listening to your podcast and stuff, you're not too fond of California, which I don't blame you because I definitely want to move out of there.
I lived there for a long time and I watched it really devolve into like Tombstone, Arizona. That's really crazy what happened there. And just I think bad government and high taxes and I don't know, just a really
the taxes are
really,
insane.
Really sad. But now I live in Miami and I love it. It's just I think it's a great governor and just a great bunch of people living here. And just I think everyone here is out there really have a good time. People love to make money here and it's a light atmosphere. LA was heavy energy, especially during COVID. It was just so much virtue signaling, and I found it almost untenable to live there. It was very miserable, so I left. Let me ask you this. So going back to this idea of the metaverse, what do you think of what's happening right now with like all these play to earn games and do you think this is a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? What have you ever played one?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of like pay to win games that do not do well with communities because having forums now and having all these different outlets like social platforms allow people to definitely kind of put their opinion out there and have other people, agree with them on this kind of atmosphere. If you ever have to pay to win people, no, that's just not the way to go. I think what's more interesting is kind of seeing the NFT and the crypto space trying to
play to earn. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that whole thing? Do you think that's the future or is it just a completely different animal than what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I know they want to be the future and I appreciate the kind of idea of, with the currency and how it reflects on like what we currently have versus what they want to create. Unfortunately, I think there is a lot of like contamination in that, ironically enough, which I think is also our issue, even with the whole government part of it. Is that there can be contamination, it gets greed. And then in general...
Explain what you mean by contamination. What do you mean?
The idea is like, it's the same thing with like stocks, right? Is that there's a lot of like what they call pump and dumps in this certain space. And you can have an influencer, for instance, that has millions of gullible followers that will be like, oh, I'm into this crypto part.
Terrible. Fucking terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Right.
Those people, hopefully, those people are going to go to jail, by the way. A lot of those people, it's just that they haven't gone yet, but trust me, a lot of those people that were doing it, if someone does it once, okay, whatever, they'll probably get away with it. But there's a few big influencers that literally were just like routinely pumping and dumping and making tens of millions of dollars. Those people are going to go to jail and deserve to. They really do. It's terrible what they did.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just gullible people that are assuming they might be able to be involved in a space that might give them some form of an American dream. And
Right.
like I said, that's the innocence. Like that's the idea, is to potentially have a little bit more of a better way of having money and funding and being able to support yourself. But unfortunately, there's still just a lot of contamination and greed in that space.
And that's what you're talking about here is like not the game, but the tokenomic, where people are just like pumping up a token essentially. And not even, let's take that out of the equation though for a second, all that shit, because that's bad shit and you're right. In terms of this idea that you're playing a game and things are, for sale, can be bought, can be sold, you can make money by, I guess, winning certain contests with other people. Is that part of like what you're doing naturally in the video game world, or no, none of that exists in your world, and that's strictly in the NFT world?
Yeah, that's definitely like on the competitive side of things, especially just kind of what I've learned of being involved with Rec Global and stuff, is that it's a lot safer to be involved with a company who has more of a structure. Because like you said, when you kind of get involved with these, different areas of gaming, it definitely can get a little harder to make sure people are honest and on the up and up. So no, competitively, it's definitely a lot more like trying to be like sports, where you have your teams representing your cities, and, everybody has their jerseys and their ways of representing a team and supporting a team. And they, their fans all support them, show up at the live events. And it's definitely like, the crypto NFT thing can be like a sponsor and like be invested. But for instance, there is a lawsuit going on with another esports team, G2, and they're dealing with suing the NFT space for 5.2 million. So yeah, it's an interesting space, and there's a lot to unpackage there. But it's not necessarily involved in the average day-to-day life of gaming.
Yeah, I think it's, number one, it's in desperate need of regulation, and the government's been way too slow to act. I think once regulation comes in, you'll see a lot of the bad actors leave the business and go into the next unregulated thing. But it's interesting though, like, you look at it from the financial aspect, some of the money that's been made in these play to earn games with things like Axie Infinity, and it's a terrible game, by the way. I mean, it's like awful. And I think you agree, right? Like compared to the high level games that you play, it really intrigues me that people will play such a stupid, silly game, which it just is. What do you think it is? Is it just people play? Is it simply that play to earn? They don't care, or even that gets addictive in its own ways, or it's just the money?
Yeah, I think everybody has different reasons of getting involved in something. There are people that play on like RP servers where they'll play Grand Theft Auto, and then they'll try to take on a persona and role play that character in game and on the mic and stuff. So for instance, if I'm like, I don't even know what I would be able to voice act here. But if I wanted to sound like, I was a godfather and that's how I wanted to portray myself on the server, I would interact as the godfather to other people and completely invest myself into a different character. So point is, people play video games for many different reasons. Whether you're just passing time on a simple mindless mobile app, or you're playing competitively, you're playing to role play, you're playing to, take people's money. It's all over the place.
Do you think that this movement to where like people really are spending a lot of time in this world, in this virtual world, do you think it's a good thing, or do you think that somehow it replaces the desperate need for actual human connection, that people are just behind screens, they're not interacting with each other in person? Like, when I was growing up, it's like if you wanted to meet someone and talk, you had to go to a bar or you had to go out to the park or something. And do you think this is a good thing? And what role do you think video games are playing in this whole sort of like this lack of interpersonal connection?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think that comes down to uh, time, right? We're going to see later on down the road, like how many people have been affected in that sense. Uh, my parents did a good job at being parents and making sure that, you know, to be aware of my interactions on a day-to-day basis. And there's only so much you can do, right? Once they get older, if they want to go out and meet some random, the Tinder swindler who's randomly convincing them to give him $250,000,
I saw that, by the way. It's insane.
It's nuts. That's
That
absolutely
guy's
nuts.
a total asshole, by the way.
Yeah,
What
I
an
know. And that
evil
has
dude.
nothing to do with gaming, right? Like that's just people who are manipulating a space by, like you said, being involved in text messaging and convincing other people and playing with their emotions. I do think that if an individual doesn't kind of become more aware of how they're, once you get older, right? I think like once you get older is where you start saying like, oh, now my body doesn't want to, sit in a chair for 8 hours a day. Now my lower back, my hip hurts. And, now my diet is also causing me to like gain weight, or I feel unhealthy, or I, become type 2 diabetic or something. That as we get older, we start to see the way that things affect us. And if you don't take the responsibility of like self-care and understanding yourself, because it's a double-edged sword. You have the internet, which may make us less social, but then you also have this outlet that gives you vast amounts of information of anything that you want to be involved in. So I do think it would be great to kind of, make more of an effort to like try to be interactive and socially interactive, because there's a lot of vulnerability and experience to learn from having to be in that social environment. I don't think it's absent, and I don't think gaming has it any more or less than social media. If anything, social media might be even worse in that way of how you view yourself and how people treat you. But yeah, it definitely can potentially become an issue. And I think mental health has become something a lot more people are aware of, which is a good step.
What is it that makes a great game great? Is there a formula? Like, for example, are there certain qualities that when you're playing a game, you know right away, like this is a great game. It's engaging. It's addictive. Is there certain things that every great game has?
I don't think there's a specific formula. I think there is a time and a place for specific things to come into the environment and see if there's success. I'm sure you've seen it, Jordan, with certain businesses, right? Like if you all of a sudden bring something you think that you can do well in this economy, that it may not do well just because people aren't necessarily ready or able to absorb it or be involved in it. And with gaming,
Timing is everything, right?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, timing can be everything. Like I played before there was Warzone, I played Blackout, and that game was great, I thought. But they didn't update the game enough. It wasn't free to play. I think free to play is probably, if I'm going to give you an answer straight up, free to play. Because, like a lot of people don't want to invest that $60 to see if they like something. If it's free to play, and then if they do enjoy it, they can support it by buying skins or buying, maps or whatever it is available, DLC or things that become available. That's fine. But there are so many different ways that we've seen games be the best, and some games that deserve to be the best that didn't quite hit the mark because of timing, or a lot of it can be influencers. Like Skate, for instance, Tony Hawk Pro Skate became extremely popular because I believe it was PewDiePie or somebody in that space that started playing it, and then everybody else got into it, and it became like the number 4 game sales in the world because influencers got involved. So yeah, there's a lot of, I think, popular influencers can make a difference. The people who get involved in it, and the environment.
So I've been approached to do a Wolf of Wall Street video game.
Oh.
I guess it would be a combination of like Wall Street and Grand Theft Auto in some way. What did you think of Grand Theft Auto? Did you like that game?
No, my parents are definitely not into me glorifying like the gangster lifestyle. So yeah,
I never played. I've never played. I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about it. I just,
Nah, my inappropriateness would hang out in strip clubs or something, but yeah, I feel a little guilty for rolling over a hooker or something. I've never really, no, I never really got into those role-playing games like Grand Theft Auto and whatnot. But But I'm definitely willing to shoot around in a game and snipe people's heads off. So it's kind of weird.
Right, I get it. But what about, like, so I'm just trying to understand because it intrigues me. So you bring up some excellent points. Number one, obviously, you said a good point. Free to play, so low barrier to entry. Anyone could start playing the game and get and at least get their feet wet, and then if they like it, they can start putting money in. So it's sort of like a loss leader strategy to get wide acceptance. Then people upgrade and get more powers and buy skins and get potions and all this stuff, right? Second thing you said was marketing, meaning, influencers, celebrities playing the game and hoping that caused somebody to gain traction. Is that a common strategy, or that was just one crazy thing with a PewDiePie? Or was it always that's a very common way to get a game to go viral?
Yeah, I think it was because he was still playing a game that's really good that kept it, like, people wanting to play it as well and get involved. I'll send you a consultation fee at the end of this because I know this is for your Wolf of Wall Street game. So
exactly right. It's actually not for the Wolf of Wall Street game, but I am in the gaming business, and I'm very interested. Yeah. I'm asking you questions I think that I want to know the answers to.
Oh, no, I'm just giving you shit. I'm just giving you shit.
No, but it's good. No, but I am. Of course, I'm asking you questions. I want this knowledge.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I do think the core of the game has to be pretty fun. And it may be a lightning in the bottle for certain things, but there's definitely a core aspect to, if you look at commonalities with certain games, like if you have a massive online role-playing game, that there's like certain questing systems and certain ways of traversing through, being invested in that make it really intriguing. When you have shooters, there's like the reason Blackout didn't do well is because their armor system wasn't that good and the time to kill was really off, and there was like a stun grenade that was way too overpowered called the 9-bang, and it's just there's ways of kind of, I guess, launching a certain idea or a certain video game, and then the feedback kind of has to be adjusted. But I can't imagine what that's like, because you'll have one person that's like, oh, this is so unfair, and like another person that's like, this is great. So where do you go from there?
If you want to grow your business, you want to diversify your content, this is a product that I 1000% believe in and use myself every day. And it's been a game changer for me, making more money for me than any other app I've used that's even close to this. It's called Melon. And Melon is a web-based live streaming studio that makes streaming easy and lucrative. It is literally the best out there by a country mile. And I'm looking you in the eye. I'm telling you, that's a fact. Go to live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube in just 5 clicks. All of them at once. You're not going to find a better tool out there than Melon for your live streaming needs. Impossible. Better streaming in HD, recording functionality, real-time audience interaction. You get everything with Melon. So start streaming with Melon today. Go to melonapp.com/wolf. That's Melon, MELON-APP, melonapp.com/wolf. Sign up for a free account. Because of me, it's free, by the way. You get a high-performance professional live streaming tool for free. It's blazing fast. The response time is like that. Low CPU usage. It's all available right in your browser. Go to melonapp.com/wolf and start streaming today. This is a no-brainer. If you don't try this, honestly, then you must not like making money online. How important are the graphics to you, that they're realistic?
Oh, Minecraft is popular. I don't think people give a shit. You got Minecraft, which is literally 8-bit, which I'm like, wait a second. We're going back to the future. Like, it's very strange. No, to me, it's the same way, like when, 4K DVDs and that kind of stuff came out, and like 4K is becoming more and more popular. I'm not personally into it. I don't know if you are, where you like, I don't need to see someone's pores in order to enjoy and absorb a story.
Well, I think it got to the point where, it's diminishing returns. After 4K, I bought an 8K TV. I couldn't even tell the difference. It's just nonsense. It's like, it's almost like, when they try to give you 3D TV, enough. It's good enough as it is. So it's like diminishing returns. That's one thing I wonder about the metaverse. Like, at a certain point, do people just not care to truly be that much immersed? I think they will ultimately, but it just, you see what happens. Like when it gets to a certain point, television, it's like, it doesn't make any difference anymore. The human brain can't take in any more, sensory. It's almost sensory overload.
Yeah, no, I can see that being an issue, which actually brings me to a question that I had for you. Do you play
Sure.
games like, I know you said you got an Oculus, right? Do you play any games more recent? Like, is there something that draws you to a specific video game?
No, but I'm going to start. I mean, I honestly I felt like the whole thing passed me by. Like I mean, I watched my kids playing Call of Duty and Halo. I'm like, it's just like I get killed in 2 seconds. Like that, I'm like, I can't even play. You know, and like, I mean, when I was young, I was really good at these games. I was really, really good. I was like one of the best kids in the neighborhood when it came to asteroids or race car driving like that. So that was my games. We used to go to an arcade. You had to play them in an arcade on big machines. Then they came into the home, and I lost it in television. Was the first one that was semi more realistic, and I just like it's just too much, you know. So I was great at Miss Pac-Man and a few others, but no, I bought the Oculus because I was thinking the other day, you know, at the end of the line here, what is it that really people want? They want to be stimulated. People want to not be bored. And I said, you know, this is really could be an interesting tool for that. And just it just kind of occurred to me the other day, maybe I should really give this a shot and see what it's really like. Because I'm in the industry. I have companies that have, you know, that support game players like you. I have another company that's building games, and I wanted to really experience it for myself. And see, you know, that's why I'm asking you questions. Like, I don't like, is it formulaic, or is it just a game just catches fire for some reason? But how much is it formula?
Yeah, there's definitely a formula in a way. As to what a company decides their formula is, I guess changes for them, and sometimes it's hit or miss. I mean, it really can be hit or miss. When you look at Call of Duty, it's just been around forever, and I think a lot of people just have familiarity with the title, and they just get into that.
Did you ever contemplate like whether we are living in a simulation ourselves, like we're in one giant video game?
Yeah, and if the Earth is flat as well. No, I definitely through panic attacks and anxiety, actually, that can make you question reality for sure. Because I think that's part of panic attacks, for me at least, was the disconnect of trying to understand reality and even just how we visualize things and how we're absorbing this specific content. I don't think we're in a simulation per se. I do believe that there are acts of synchronicities and other things that are not explained necessarily by science, and there's a lot to explore there. But if this is a simulation, that's, you know, I got to talk to I need the Matrix pill here so I can try to like do some different things. Let's
change the subject. Let me talk about your personal life. What do you do when you're not gaming?
Not gaming, just like I said, cooking. I love food.
You married? Do you have a boyfriend? Are you married?
No.
Single?
Yeah, a single. When having to kind of move and just, I don't know, I guess be more focused on a career, it's not necessarily something that I've concerned myself like trying to be. And also the dating space is very strange when it comes to that.
That's for sure.
Yeah, with Tinder and I don't want to be swindled. But it's never really been too much of an issue. I have people that surround me, friends, family, and all of that. And I'm not really, my goals aren't any kind of the white picket fence stuff.
What are your goals? Where do you want to go from here?
I kind of just want to be able to involve in like I said, the health part of things. I would love mental health and physical health to be integrated into gaming as much as possible. And I really want to just kind of create my own, like just really invest in my brand. And then also like being a part of Rec Global and being the general manager for that has really given me insight into what esports is about and what the competitive side is about. And for me, I could even see myself being like a personal trainer / I don't think I'd be the chef. I don't think I could cook for people and have them opinionate my dish. I'd be quite triggered if you didn't like what I cooked for you. But I could easily hire a chef and tell the chef, like, this is, use good oils and integrate, whole foods and follow along this diet like this kind of way of making them healthier. Because that's something that I would like to see more, is gamers tend to like fall in line with energy drinks and malnutrition, because I think they're really young, first of all, so they don't necessarily see how it affects them, because our young bodies are just like so fast in metabolizing and dealing with the kind of stuff we put in it. But yeah, even if it's like getting more physically adapted to it, because that's something that personally helped me with panic attacks and anxiety, is once you exercise, if they
Sure.
can, yeah, if they can put what you feel after exercising in a pill, that you'd be that, that's the best thing you'll ever
Yeah.
have.
Well, that's by the way why morphine and narcotics, they're basically chemically related. Endorphins is the natural form of that your body releases after exercise and in response to pleasure, and then along with dopamine and narcotics
Yep.
are competing for the same receptor site. So no
Yep.
wonder we tend to get addicted to them. Sad but true, right?
Yep. Are you interested at all in the competitive esports space?
Yeah, well, I'm involved with a couple of different companies that one is called Game Square,
Okay.
and another is Brag House, which is amateur esports.
Nice.
And it shocks me. The whole thing shocks me and intrigues me, because I never in a million years would have thought that there would be an ecosystem and a money making ability from kids playing games. That is really, I would have never, and it just really fascinates me that I could have just been so off. Like I literally said to my son, if you keep playing games or, playing with, these cards, right, you're never going to get laid. You're never going to, you're never going to have a life. And then these kids 5 years later start becoming celebrities for playing games on Twitch and just becoming famous in the esports world. So it fascinates me. So I'm in this space, and also I'm heavily in the metaverse world and stuff like that. So we're building out some different games, and it just typically though the quality of those games is a little bit different. Those what you're playing here, these are massive amounts of money put into building these games. They're world built games, right? With $50-100 million maybe spent. And I think that's very different than sort of what I'm seeing right now in the metaverse and, the play to earn. It's a different level.
Yeah. And if you look at, like, for instance, when I brought up Among Us, that was actually an indie game created by a small group of people. And it came out in 2018 and didn't become popular until 2020. So there are times too where little, treasure pieces that are lost in the chest may all of a sudden rise to the surface and become really intriguing and interactive in terms of gaming.
So where do you see yourself, before we go, I want to say, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? What are you going to be doing?
I really just want to kind of grow my influence in that way. I think after, now that I'm turning 34, I think I've learned just a couple things, at least. I hope I've learned a couple things.
In your old age now.
Yeah, now that I'm a boomer, I think I can, I just want to, I've been pretty bad about like being on YouTube and stuff. And I think that might have been just from people making fun of me growing up in that gaming space. I got criticized and stuff. And same thing, like I used to be called fat, and they would make fun of like my arms, and they call them like anacondas and stuff. So I think from like somewhat being traumatized by online opinions can, influence me differently. And so I just kind of want to get better with my work ethic in terms of being the best general manager I can be, as well as balancing that with streaming a fair amount. But I don't like that grind. There's too much of a grind with streaming. I would love to be more involved with the YouTube space, where you can kind of, you can do shorter videos or have just your content be a little bit more concise. And I have a lot of ideas, and it's just the execution. So if you have any advice on making sure you execute your ideas.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's, a lot of times people don't execute because it's not that they're afraid of failure, that they really, in their own mind, their own heart, they don't really believe they can succeed. They don't really have the self-belief that if they do all the hard work, they'll actually end up getting what they want. So I think a lot of this has to do with, also educating yourself, knowing that you got to, sometimes there's certain skills you got to learn, things you have to know. So I think some people aren't willing to do the work. Now, in your case, you've done the work. So I have every confidence in you that, you can, whatever you don't know, you can learn. But many people, they talk about wanting success. They talk about these big ideas, but they're not willing to do the work, the things they don't want to do, the things that aren't fun to do. And a lot of times that's what you need to be successful. So it's not just the glamorous side. That's almost the end result is the glamour. It's sort of the grunt work and the slog of it that you have to put yourself through. But you're obviously up to that challenge. If someone wants to find out more about you, tell me what's the best place for them to follow you? What are your platforms?
So online on Twitch, I'm Kat Gunn. So it's my name, Katgunn. Thank you, mom and dad, for that name. It totally
Good
works.
name. Kat Gunn.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. And then my gamer tag is Mystic, which actually you can see it's spelled with a K.
Mystic.
Yeah, I go by Mystic Gun for all the websites. I couldn't get Kat Gunn because somebody else somehow stole it. So yeah, I go by my gamer tag is Mystic, and yeah, I go by Mystic Gun.
Awesome. All right. Well, listen, everybody, follow Kat Mystic Gun on her platforms. You're awesome. Listen, thanks for coming on the podcast. I wish you nothing but success, and maybe I'll contact you. But maybe we could do something with the game. You know, I think you got a lot of good ideas.
Let's do it.
All right, Kat. Everyone, share this with your friends. Tell everyone about Kat Gunn. She's awesome, and we'll see you next week for another episode of the Wolf's Den. Thanks, Kat.